Hello, and welcome to episode 39 of Expertise is Overrated, the podcast that takes the time to answer the questions you didn't know you didn't want the answer to. I'm Sean.
And I'm Vib, and neither of us has any clue what we're talking about. Before we move on, let's award the much vaunted Expertise is Overrated Tinfoil Award.
As a reminder, this is an award that we give out at the start of each episode to the person who had the most ridiculous point in last week's episode. Now, the astute amongst you will have noticed that we haven't recorded an episode for a while, so the tinfoil this week is linked to that. It's my bad, again.
Well, it's always your bad, really, ultimately.
This should hopefully be the last one for a while. So I moved house again, and the house that we moved into didn't have the internet set up that I'd been assured by my ISP would be set up before we moved in. And it's taken this long to get it sorted.
Yeah, well, that's such a thing in this country, isn't it? It's actually infuriating. So I'm moving in the next 2 to 5 months. So it's entirely possible the same thing will happen again.
The best thing was, right, the OpenReach guy turned up at the house at 8:10 and he was like, do you have fibre to the house? I was like, I think so. And he said, well, do you have an OSD box? I think so. He came into the lounge where the box was. He went, oh yeah, you do. Does it work? I don't currently have internet. Got an iPad, pressed 2 buttons. And then we've got 100 megabit download internet.
Yeah, classic UK.
It was literally that. He was like, I don't know.
So frustrating, isn't it?
I don't know why people were telling you I needed to fiddle around with the exchange. That's not how Ethernet works. Anyway, I'm not the only one in receipt of an award this week, though. We've got an honourable mention.
Which is the first, I believe, isn't it?
I think so.
No, we've had a few.
We gave Lionheart an honourable mention, but he was on the episode. This is just someone from our Discord server. So Nitsua in our Discord, when I announced on there that this is going to happen, I think just failed to read.
It's the only explanation, really.
I had a complete failure of reasoning capacity and thought that I was going to be out without internet for 7 months. And started proposing ridiculous solutions to getting an episode recorded.
Well, in his own words, because he sort of read it as... He said he read mid-October, and he then, for some reason, said, that's 7 weeks from now. So well done. Please send over some of that stuff that you're drinking.
Yeah, that was quite something. Well done.
It is good stuff.
And if Nitsua's daughters are listening to this, please make fun of your father for the rest of his life.
Absolutely. You're sounding very podcasty today.
Am I?
Yes. I don't know if it's you trying to keep your voice down or something, but you're hitting a nice sort of low baritone.
Ooh, excellent. I am trying to be quite quiet. So the study that I'm recording in is just one wall away from where the baby's napping. So I'm quite keen to not wake her up.
So if I shout loudly enough, it might
I'll go deaf.
Might be through your thing.
Excellent.
But this is good.
I'll need to keep this going forward.
I mean, I told you earlier this week, and yes, I'm bringing this up in public. I say public. But 2 separate people told me that I've got a great voice for podcasting. So you're all very welcome.
Well, if you've come to our podcast after telling Vib that, how much better is my voice than his, eh? Make sure you tell him that in person next time you see him.
At least I don't have a funny accent. Anyway.
All right, Mr. Belgian.
Whoa, that is privileged information.
Sorry.
Privileged to everybody, of course.
Yeah, I've definitely accused you of being Belgian before. Anyway.
Anyway, what's great is that the notes stop here.
Yeah,
so what are we even talking about today?
We're going completely off-piste. So we were originally, back when I thought I was going to have internet at some point in September, we were going to talk about Marvel films, because I've finally caught up with Thor, Love and Thunder, and so now in a position to talk about all Marvel films released to date.
One word verdict on Thor?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic.
Not as good as Ragnarok.
No, but yeah.
Second best Thor film.
Well, I mean, at that point it has to be.
I don't know. Thor 1 is good. Thor 1
Okay,
is
yeah,
very
yeah.
good.
We were going to talk about the MCU and
We were
its
going to talk.
lack of villains, or its
Well,
sort of
we
power
were
creep villains.
we were going to talk about whether the films are getting more ridiculous. The original talking point was going to be, has Marvel jumped the shark?
Yes.
But we're going to come on to that next week and talk about something slightly different, as Vib has suggested, because 2 days ago, the finale of Rings of Power, Amazon's flagship Lord of the Rings Middle Earth fantasy TV show, aired. I'm assuming you've watched it, otherwise, this is going to be a lot of me talking.
Well, we don't want that. So yes, I have watched it.
Excellent. Yeah, so we're going to just spend the next hour probably talking about Rings of Power, what we thought about it, what we liked, what we didn't, if there was anything we didn't, which there probably was.
For once, I will say, because we're actually uncharacteristically on time with
We're
this sort of
so
thing.
on time.
Obvious spoiler warning for all of Rings
Yes.
of Power.
Yes. And probably spoiler warnings for seasons 2, 3, 4, and 5, but
Yes, but I mean, anyone
we're
who's
just
read
guessing.
the wider Tolkien literature is in the same boat.
Yes,
We're
true.
not in any way privy to the next
No,
few seasons.
sorry. When I say spoiler warnings, all that we're likely to be able to spoil is major plot points, assuming Amazon's not gone too far off the deep end, plus a little bit of cast and crew interviews and stuff. So, with that warning, throw it back at you. One word. What did you think? One sentence rather than one word.
I loved it and hated it.
So I described it to someone recently. I'll see if I can find the exact quote that I had because it was quite good. I think I said, I really like it and I can't explain why.
That's one way. Part of me looks at it and thinks objectively I should hate this, right? Because there are some lore issues, but you know what? I think they did it in such a charming way, and what we'll come on to did it in an engaging way
Yeah,
that I'll forgive them for it.
I think that's right. I think the bits that I didn't like. Well, no, I like I say, I enjoyed every episode. I will watch probably the whole thing again at some point before season 2 comes out. I'm going to watch season 2. The pacing, I think, was the biggest thing for me that I really struggled with because it's what, 8 episodes, 9 episodes, 8, I think.
Yeah, if that, right? Is it even 8 episodes?
I think it's 8.
I've been watching this for 2 months, have we?
I think so, but nothing happens for the first 4 episodes.
Nothing happens. That is very true.
And then everything is essentially crammed into the last 3 episodes. So
Yeah, it's something that only really kind of dawned on me toward once I'd finished that last one. I said they spend so much time setting it up, and because I remember we actually talked and said that the pace is a bit glacial, and then yes, as you say, all of a sudden all the reveals happen, and literally Mount Doom blows up and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, so Mount Doom blows up at the end of the 3rd but last episode. And then in the penultimate episode, you get
Galadriel just deciding to leave everyone
Galadriel
behind
and Theo. And you also get a lot more Elrond and Durin stuff. Specifically
which we're all here for.
I'm absolutely here for that. Specifically Durin going against his father's wishes and then being caught and that all going to shit. And then in the last episode, you get the entirety of the forging of the 3 in 25 minutes.
Yes, the namesake of the entire show happens in about 20 minutes, yeah.
It's ridiculous. We were talking about it before, weren't we? It's quite difficult to see how they spin this out now for 5 seasons.
Well, a lot has to happen ultimately, right? I mean, we've essentially just
True.
seen a snapshot, so we know that lore-wise, the elves are at war with Sauron for a long time before men get involved.
But that can't be true. No. Because we're on essentially the timer is on, we're on a ticking clock because we've seen
Well,
the
when I say
Isildur
men,
and
I do mean Numenor, yeah.
sure, but I mean, how old's Elendil's? What, 300, 400 years old when he dies? 300, I think. And
Yeah,
he's looking pretty middle aged now. We've probably got 150 years.
yeah, but I think they're doing some sort of time warp fuckery with all this. I think they're essentially going to tell the Second Age's story in the span of a few hundred years, even
I
though
think
it's
that's right.
supposed to be many thousands.
I think that's right. I think they're condensing essentially the Numenorian plot to just Elendil and Pharazôn and ignoring sort of everything that comes before the sort of, as you say, 1,000 years before then, which is fine
Yeah,
because
but do
I'm
Farazon
absolute.
and Elendil overlap technically?
They have to because Pharazôn is the yes, Elendil is the Lord of Andúni during Pharazôn's reign. I'm fairly sure as Ar-Pharazôn because it's Ar-Pharazôn who builds the fleet that sails
Yeah, who
west.
fucks everything up? Yeah,
And don't the faithful leave? Yeah, doesn't Elendil found Arnor and Gondor post Numenor sailing west, post the sinking?
yeah. He does it post the sinking for sure, but
So they
I
have
I
to
thought there may
overlap
be some
then.
time in between the sinking and Elendil actually coming around. But no, yeah, it makes sense for them to overlap for sure.
Well, because it's Elendil and his sons who land in Middle Earth. It's not their ancestors,
Yes, yeah,
so they have to
yeah. But I mean,
overlap.
Numenorians and Middle Earth not ever really mutually exclusive.
No,
But no, I guess that's yeah, because as you say, he doesn't live that long ultimately in the grand scheme of things, and he's there at the last alliance. So
mm. Yeah, we've got to. That actor probably has to make it to the last alliance, which means we're on a ticking clock.
yeah, and speaking of actors, Halbrand, big
I mean,
fan, I must say. I think actually he is perfectly cast.
so yeah, I think he is for the character that he's playing. I think he's perfectly cast. The I'm going to really struggle if Halbrand is as well as being Sauron, Anatar. I think I'm going to really struggle with that, because I don't see he doesn't look like fair enough for what I imagine Sauron coming to Celebrimbor and as the Lord of
Yeah,
Gift
no.
is going to be. But I guess he is. That's who Halbrand is.
So I've got some issues with that whole plot line. But
Okay.
I'm more concerned about going forward. Is that obviously Anatar has to be a thing. But the
Well, I was
Numenorians
thinking
now
this.
have met Halbrand and know what he looks like, so they're going to have to recast Anatar, surely.
Well, there's two ways they could do this, right? Because so, let me think. Let me get this one right.
That would be a
So
first.
it's Sauron who goes to Numenor in chains. It's not Anatar. It's actually Sauron.
Yes.
So they don't need to recast Halbrand. They just have Halbrand go, "Oh yeah, I'm actually Sauron," to the Numenorians, and then that works.
But then you still need to cast Anatar.
If you need to cast Anatar, unless Anatar is a title that Halbrand adopts, and it's still just Halbrand.
So you're saying that Numenor knowingly let Sauron, yeah, guide them astray.
But they
That could
do.
that could
But
be
they
interesting.
do. That's the thing. They do knowingly let Sauron guide them astray. That's
Mm.
what that's what the fall of Numenor is. It's taking Sauron in council. They're not deceived, not like Celebrimbor is.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about that. I mean, That I think really is where they rushed it too much for my liking.
Yeah. I
They spend the entire season sort of getting Halbrand and Galadriel's relationship established, and I think they do that fairly well. But the problem is they've also spent the entire season undermining Galadriel's importance because Gil-galad is like, you know, I command things around here.
so I think you and I have slightly different views of Gil-galad, which I want to come on to. But yes, you're right that you don't get the sense from Rings of Power that Galadriel is probably, if Tolkien were writing now, High King at this point, High Queen.
Wait, let's say that again.
So the reason that Gil-galad is High King is that the High King of the Noldor is the Noldor male in closest descent to Finwë, discounting the sons of Fëanor.
Yes.
Right. If you take out the male requirement to be High King, Galadriel is High Monarch of the Noldor because she's closer to Finwë. So that's my only point.
Yeah, no, sure. No, but I
that.
think the elves, above anything else, just value wisdom and knowledge. And I mean, she's been around for so long, which they kind of don't seem to really want to acknowledge and appreciate. Which is fine. And I don't mind if they create some sort of power dynamic. But then, in the last episode and stuff, she's clearly held in high regard by Celebrimbor and Edelron because she seems to be kind of in charge.
I don't mind her sort of being less wise than she is in the Third Age. I think that they do a good job of explaining sort of why she's so monodirectional.
Yes.
But you're right. But is this just because we're too deep in the lore and so are struggling to reconcile the Galadriel that we see on screen with the Galadriel that we think we're reading about in the Silmarillion?
It's possible, of course, and it's entirely possible. But what bothers me is that someone like Celebrimbor, who is still very senior, and not to forget Fëanorian, just lets a man stroll into his damn workshop and make suggestions. A man that he doesn't know.
No, but Galadriel knows him.
Galadriel knows, but that also kind of bothers me ultimately. Like, she's so hell-bent on finding evil that, I don't know, she just makes some very fundamental flaws, I think.
She's essentially in a can't see the wood for the trees situation.
Potentially, yeah.
She's so fixated on this idea that Sauron is back and is coming back and all of that, and she's the only one who sees this risk and no one else is taking it seriously, and Gil-galad's busy playing politics, and even her friend Elrond isn't supporting her. And then Halbrand appears, and all of a sudden he's someone that she can essentially use. And that's the point that he's making when they have that weird mind fuckery bit in the last episode. He's like, you did everything. I just wanted to stay in Numenor and make swords. You're the one who convinced Miriel. You're the one who dragged me to the Southlands. Like, it's all been her. And it's all because she doesn't...
He's not entirely honest about that. He got on the ship.
He got on the ship, yeah. But
she wanted him to, yes.
She convinced him.
No.
Did she? Obviously is the actual question. I'm not convinced either way. But it's an easy spin for him. I think their dynamic is really good, even right at the end.
Really good. It is really good. I think it was well done in a lot of ways, actually, that, if you reduce Sauron to just a creature who wants to essentially ensure world peace...
Well, that's all, yeah.
Then she's the one at odds with that, right? Because she actively wants to wage war.
Mm-hmm.
It's really clever, I thought.
I think it's really well done. I think we're going to need to spend some time with Halbrand now that we know who he is.
Well, we're going to, because he's going to have to put an almighty beat down on Adar, isn't he?
Yeah, that's going to be really good. I'm really looking forward to that. Can we take a moment
Unless
to
he was
talk
also just taking, I don't know, or lying. He's a confusing mystery to me.
Adar?
Yeah.
I really liked his inclusion, though. I thought
Yeah.
it's difficult because, as you quite rightly said, it canonizes something that Tolkien always struggled with, which is where do orcs come from?
Yeah.
Which fine. I don't think that's a particularly meaningful question. They're just the bad guys. And I think it's fine for them to just be the bad guys. And I don't think they need any metaphysical significance beyond that. Although it's fun to argue about whether or not
No.
they have Fear and all of that.
From a this is the storyline and this is how it's going to progress. It's absolutely not anything you should be worried about. Orcs exist. This is how orcs are made, but it's
Yeah.
just to move on with our lives. But as you say, that the sort of more meta things are important in that context.
True. And there's a big, very big and very unsavory question about how does Adar create more orcs, and I'm not sure I want the answer to that.
Vats, probably.
Probably Vats, but
what he adds to the Vats, we'd rather not ask.
Yeah. But I like the idea that the first orcs or Uruk were just elves. I really, really like that. I really like this suggestion that the later orcs are the sort of horribly misshapen creatures that you see in Jackson's films or even in Rings of Power. But the very, very first ones are just elves that Morgoth stole and tortured and broke.
I've always liked that, yes, because I mean it just shows that they're not completely infallible, which is always nice in a lively world. But I always like to think that off the back of that, Morgoth essentially was experimenting and seeing like, how can I recreate an elf, and the best he ever came up with was an orc. Now, I guess that's not necessarily ruled out in the way they've done this.
No, it's not. I see what you mean.
They're experimental creations that are sort of weirdly modelled on Adar and elves. But yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, we get to explore a little bit more in some of the seasons. We got to fill it with something, right?
Yeah, there's a lot. We need a lot of filler.
I just want a whole season on orc biology, please.
That sounds horrible.
Oh, I'd love it. I'm here for it, Amazon. If you need a consultant, hit me up. Jeff, I know you're listening.
Yeah, God, I don't want to even contemplate. There's a lot, yeah.
We'll get David Attenborough to narrate the whole thing. It'd be great. It'd be fantastic.
That I would get behind.
Yeah, you see? $1 billion idea right here.
You're starting to sell me on it. Now, what I don't like, a core storyline that I don't like, is all the Harfoot stranger rubbish. I just don't care. I was struggling the whole way through to care about that, and I just didn't. And I've been thinking about it for the last 24 hours, or I think, or more even. And I've come to the conclusion that the reason I don't like it is that it's a story that doesn't touch any other story. It's completely, which was a realization that I only came to, 2 or 3 hours after finishing the last episode.
Yeah.
Nori and the stranger don't interact with anyone other than Harfoots. And I don't see how it's so hard to care about them in the context of the Rings of Power. Now, obviously, they're trying to set up that the stranger is someone of great importance, and I liked the reveal right at the start of the last episode that he's Sauron, except obviously he's not. That was quite funny. I liked that. But I don't know, it just... Because he's not Sauron.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's got the sort of Daenerys problem, right? In that it's a storyline that's set completely elsewhere. But it's worse in that there, as you say, there are absolutely zero links to anything else that's going on.
And now they're going
none at all.
I know they're going in the wrong direction.
Ish, right?
They might cross paths with Halbrand, maybe.
Ish. It's hard to know.
But Halbrand's already in Mordor now. We saw him crossing the mountains of Doom.
Yeah, he moves fast, doesn't he? But there's a few things about it, right? And I really hope that it's A, not Gandalf,
Yeah, absolutely.
and B, that it's just some sort of pandering that we're going to get a blue wizard who is essentially just Gandalf. Um, I really hope we don't get that. And what was weird to me is his introduction, right? This giant meteor that just flies across all of Middle Earth. Everyone sees it. Does
And no
anyone
one
comment?
reacts.
It's weird, no?
I don't understand why when the linden tree is dying and Gilgalad's like, our light is fading. Why doesn't he put two and two together and get to 6 and go, it's because of that meteor. We have to find out what
Yeah.
that was. Because
That's never happened before.
it came from the west. Like, it's just bizarre.
Like in Warhammer, when there's one comet flying over the world, everyone goes fucking nuts about it. You know?
Holy shit, we've got a god now.
That was weird, and I thought that was maybe a really ham-fisted attempt to link the stories because they really aren't.
No.
And yeah, I'm with you on this. I don't really see how they link it up because they already needed these 3 mysterious characters, which they didn't explain even remotely, to get him to be motivated to go east to Rune.
Yeah, those 3 were great though. Just they're in like 1.5 episodes.
Yeah.
You see them at the end of like episode 4, then you don't see them again until the like penultimate episode where they just burn the shit out of all the Harfoot stuff, which I'm completely on board with. And then not Gandalf just vaporizes them all. Oh,
It's
okay.
It's
Cool.
so random though, isn't it? Like it really, really is.
Yeah.
It's almost like the writer sat down and like, okay, we have the stranger idea, love that. We have the Harfoots because we know we need hobbits.
Yeah.
How do we get this scenario to end up with the stranger and one of the Harfoots going east?
I guess
So
he's
they
got to
literally
turn.
just threw in an ex machina. We're like, here you go, these 3 random whatever they are, who seem to break quite a few, I don't know, Tolkienish laws of magic almost.
They're phenomenally magical, aren't they?
Yeah,
in a way that I was not expecting.
It's odd, right? It's odd. Were they human?
I guess so. They must have been. They can't have been Maiar because the stranger vaporized them.
Yeah, maybe they were elves. I can't
No,
really
they
remember.
had.
I don't
They
think
didn't
so.
have. They didn't have pointy ears, and also I don't think there's meant to be any elves that far east.
Yeah, but ultimately, who knows, right?
True.
It's an argument that we've had offline in the past
True.
about how many firstborn were there ultimately, and where did they all go?
Yeah, I discovered recently that like Ingwe and Finwë and Olwë and all of them are like not first generation elves, and that broke my brain for a while.
Yeah, see, but I think they might be though.
No, because
I think the evidence is a bit inconclusive, isn't it?
they're not. They weren't the first, I guess, perhaps.
But
They're
wasn't that retconned?
firstborn. It's so hard to tell.
It's the problem with Tolkien in those kind of things because he went back and just changed so many things he didn't like.
There's just
multiple different ones.
There's no such thing as canon. If it's in anything other than the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit, do you like?
Yeah, I mean Christopher Tolkien tried his very best to sort of decide on a few things, but obviously he's gone as well now. So
everything's up for grabs.
Everything's for grabs. So no, I agree with you. The Stranger storyline, I didn't mind it. I must say I didn't mind it at all. But yeah, it just doesn't fit, does it? Really?
No, it feels like filler. And
it does, yeah.
In a series that didn't need filler, because I needed more time with Celebrimbor, with Elrond, with Durin.
I agree. I think they could have done the whole first season, but I feel that would have made their job much more difficult in terms of who is Sauron. Because then it's just like, oh, it's Halbrand.
It's just it might be Adar. Oh no, it's Halbrand. No, you're absolutely right. The Stranger gives us that.
But equally, did we really need that? Because there was a time where I was thinking, oh, maybe there's maybe Sauron is just an unseen individual at the moment who is still influencing all this.
So I was suggesting that at one point, that the answer to who is Sauron is no one that we've seen. I would have quite liked that, but
yeah, but even if it is Halbrand, there's you can be 99.9% certain of something, but that 0.1% of doubt is usually enough to just keep you thinking, maybe it's not him, you know? like when he
Yeah,
saves Galadriel on that raft. Things like that.
yeah.
If they just did more and more of that, build the doubt in our mind
The,
as to whether or not he is evil or not.
they do it. To be fair, in complaining about pacing earlier, the pacing of the "Who is Sauron" question is really good because it's definitely Halbrand, and then he saves Galadriel, and then you're like, wait, hold on, and then the stranger does that murdering the fireflies thing. So you're like, maybe it's the stranger. And then Halbrand gets to Numenor and he wants to be a
Maybe.
smith and he beats the shit out of those guys, which is really funny. You're like, it's definitely Halbrand. And then the stranger does something else that's like risky and scary. You're like, maybe it's the stranger. And then you start to hear about Adar and
See,
you go,
I never had that. No, with the stranger, I never had it. He was to me, he was never Sauron.
no, I don't think
Not
he
even
was either,
remotely.
but I
Adar was a better bet for
Adar was a
sure.
better bet until we saw him. And his relationship with the
Yes,
orcs wasn't right for him to be Sauron.
yes.
But no, it was I was a big fan of the Sauron hasn't been on screen idea, but I think Halbrand was good. I think part of the problem with the idea that it was Halbrand is we've essentially George Martin has completely ruined us all on the idea that people are just who they say they are. Because pre Game of Thrones, you'd have been watching that and you'd have gone, Halbrand's a bit of a grumpy sausage every now and then. Oh my god, he's Sauron. But we were all just looking for it. We were looking for the guy who was Sauron who wasn't claiming to be Sauron because it's not just Martin, but
Well, but as with Martin's works, it's again a question of if you've read the source material, you know that Sauron is hiding and doing
true.
all kinds of shenanigans.
That's true.
But so I think to someone who's a bit more lay, shall we say,
Yeah.
um,
That would be
it's hard to know because I don't know if you kept it with the media. I actually tried to avoid it, and I feel that there wasn't too much out there. Like I feel they controlled it pretty
there
well.
wasn't that much out there.
Yeah, but
The,
because the only things that I saw was like, oh, who is the stranger?
yeah.
And
And
some
who is
articles were like,
Adar?
where is Sauron? So I don't know if you generally came in as an agnostic, if
So
you would have been all that concerned with where is Sauron, or is Sauron one of these people? And
I've seen a
what's
few I've seen a few people on Reddit talking about having watched it with non-Tolkien fans, and the good money was on either Adar or the Stranger amongst non-Tolkien fans.
okay, fair enough. Yeah,
Um,
well played, Amazon in that case. You know,
yeah, I think that's probably the answer.
but while I didn't think the stranger was Sauron, I still had the issue of like, oh, who the fuck is he though? You know, like is he
Yes,
an Istar? And I think I was probably 80% convinced he was. But I really hope it's not Saruman or Gandalf, because that would be weird for the
just
timeline.
just have it be a blue wizard. I think
I know
that's,
it gives you creative license, right? Because there's nothing canon about them at all,
and we know they went east.
and we know they went east. This is why I came up with an almost weirder thing that Nori might somehow become the second Blue Wizard, but I don't know how to explain that quite to myself yet.
That would be unexpected. But the problem is they gave the stranger the Gandalf quote, always
Yeah,
follow your nose. So unless that's a really, really brave bait and switch, which I would have a lot of respect for.
and as some friends of mine pointed out to me earlier, as we had a little debrief on it, that they said, well, his nose even was made a bit crooked to look like Gandalf's.
I haven't noticed that, but
So well, I'd noticed that either.
fair.
But if it's Gandalf, I'll be so disappointed. Like you've got so much wealth, such a wealth of choice when it comes to wizards.
Yeah,
You
you've got
know?
to ask, what does making the stranger Gandalf as opposed to anyone else get you other than pandering to fans?
Yeah,
Because it also,
yeah,
if it's Gandalf, you know that he's never at risk, which is always an issue.
exactly. With the blue wizards disappear essentially, or
Exactly.
they may be around or they may not be. It's
It
hard
could
to
have
know.
just been shanked the moment they got to Rune, which, again, funny.
Yeah.
I imagine it just season 2 opens up with just Nori being beheaded outside a temple and the stranger in chains, and then you just never see them again. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, but then that really, then you really think, well, what was the fucking point of all that storyline?
Just
It
for
had
that
nothing to do with
scene,
anything.
just because it'd be really funny.
Yeah, so maybe I don't know. Nori becoming a blue is maybe a bit much, but I suspect what we'll see is them getting into trouble in the east, and the other blue wizards
Yes,
being sent out to sort it out.
Meteor Man 2.0.
Because it'll help us maybe understand what the fuck the colors are about. Because that's never been made entirely clear.
No, it hasn't.
But my fear is that they're going to lean a little bit into what the Lord of the Rings films kind of did, where they really made Gandalf the antithesis to Sauron, which is fine, it works. But I feel that in the actual books, that's overstating it a bit. The plight is between the elves and men and the dwarves and the Dark Lord, and
Yeah, it's a weird
Gandalf is a
one.
guiding force of all that.
Yeah, he's sent east, as are the rest of the Eastari, to be guides and counselors, but forbidden to match power with power.
Yeah,
So
which is such a weird way to hamstring your agents, isn't it? Really?
yeah, but it's just because because if they don't forbid them from matching power with power, then the argument becomes, why not just send Eonwë to kick Sauron's ass and drag him back to Valinor? So it
Because
becomes
you ultimately don't need to do that.
no, but if you're, it's so weird. If you're sending people to oppose, why are you sending people to oppose Sauron? What opposition does he need? It's
Yeah, but
I'm
that's the
so
thing. I think that's what the only
Manwë.
explanation surely is, that Manwë did just enough to let the peoples of Middle Earth help themselves.
I think that's right.
Whilst,
Something
also throwing in
plan.
a curveball in the shape of Saruman, because why not?
Something plan. Eru's plan. Yeah, it's weird. Can we talk about the dwarves?
No.
Okay.
So elves. Dan, if you're listening, yeah, that's for you. No, all right, then let's talk about the dwarves. I hate to admit it, I fucking love them.
That was very good, wasn't it?
Durin and Disa might be my favorite, TV power couple.
What I really liked, though, is the last that we see of Durin and Disa. They're essentially plotting a small coup.
Small?
Well, not that small. They're essentially plotting to overthrow the rightful king before he dies and put Durin the Fourth on the throne. Which, I like Durin the Fourth, but his dad's king. I just really like that. They've created these characters whom we like, whom we relate with, and who Bezzy mates with Elrond and all that. But also, Disa's clearly got her eyes set on being Queen of Khazad-dûm.
Oh, hugely.
And she's really nice and chatty and friendly and all that, but she's also willing to essentially tell her king to fuck off.
Yeah, there's a hunger for power underneath there. Somewhere.
Yeah, so I could see, and I'm not sure how the timelines would line up, I could see Disa being the inciting incident for Durin taking a ring, for example.
That, and also, that greed for power is definitely going to be mirrored in her greed for mithril and wealth and
Digging
awakening
deeper,
the Balrog,
yeah.
whom we didn't need to see.
I hated that. I hated that. It's so frustrating. There's so much that I liked about the show, and then so many of those little scenes where I'm like, I didn't need that. You don't need to show me the Balrog.
Yeah, just the leaf, not even fully burning up,
Just starting to curl.
Yeah, just the heat waves. That's all you needed. We all know the Balrog's down there. You don't need to show us that the Balrog is down there.
I was, talking about watching it with non-Tolkien fans. No one who's watching Rings of Power hasn't seen Fellowship.
Yeah.
No one.
So that leaf also fell for about, 30 seconds?
Yeah, you don't have to dig that deeply to just meet a Balrog.
Turns out that the Balrog is just right underneath. So yeah,
It's so frustrating
we didn't need
because
that. But no,
the,
the dwarves, great. Their storyline though going forward, because I don't know, throughout the sort of later episodes, it's like, are we going to have to see an elf versus dwarf war or something? Is this where we're heading with this?
but they end up busy mates. Celebrimbor carves the runes on the doors of Durin.
Yeah, so it's going to have to be a Game of Thrones situation, right? Durin the Younger is going to have to take care of Durin the Elder somehow.
Or Durin the Elder just dies of old age.
Yeah, but he's disavowed his son.
True.
And
True.
the suggestion very much is that he's got other sons. So
Yeah, no, there is a suggestion that Durin has brothers. From Disa, in fact. So maybe we have to see a proper dwarf politicking coup.
that would be quite funny.
It would be
'Cause
quite
I'm here
good.
for it.
Yeah.
The aesthetic that they made for the dwarves, I think, was fantastic. Khazad-dûm looks great.
I really like the deepening of the culture.
Yeah,
Right, so you get the sense, cause problem is our interactions with dwarves in the Tolkienarium are Gimli and Thorin's company. As we've discussed previously, Thorin's company are just like 12 of the same dwarves plus Thorin. And
yeah,
Gimli's a one in the films. He's a one-note character. In the books, he less so, but he's still only one person.
yeah. But I think both as well. It's just the same old storyline for the dwarves, right? Is that they're inherently inward-looking and
Yes.
selfish and greedy, and then over time we're like, oh, hang on, if we help others and the people around us, things are better. So yeah,
Yeah.
we get it now.
Yeah. True. But
And this is why in the show it was never really that clear to me why the king was so against mining
because
for mithril. Like I
because it was
get it's
risky.
unstable, but you're dwarves, right? That's what you do.
But I
Like
guess that's
figure
the
out a way
point.
to make it less unsafe.
But I guess that's the point. There is no such way, right? They're dwarves with all their capability for mining and singing ores out of the rock and all of that, and even they can't make it safe.
Yeah,
I, I,
maybe.
get, I guess that's the point. But it does just look a bit like Durin the Elder is just a bit of a scaredy cat.
Maybe.
Uh,
Here's a random thought I had early today, actually.
uh-huh.
So, who are the better smiths, the elves or the dwarves in this universe?
It should be Celebrimbor. It
Should be
should
the
be the
elves, right?
elves. The Noldor are the greatest smiths of Middle Earth, I think.
So the dwarves are like this weird. They're like this weird halfway house really between elves and men, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Like they can do things slightly better than men,
I think they're
I
better
guess.
miners than the elves.
Maybe.
And they're more industrious and more industrial.
And this is maybe where I can kind of forgive the mithril storyline because it's a very important metal, a very valuable metal, and at least it was the
I,
dwarves who sort of discovered it.
I think they nearly rescued the Mithril storyline.
Weirdly, a twist I didn't actually see coming. The entire time I was like, that seems like a relatively large ingot that I'm sure you could do something with, but for some reason never once occurred to me. It's like, oh, why don't you just make the rings with that?
No, I
And
didn't.
use that power to save the elves. And I think that actually worked really quite nicely.
Yeah, that was
They
good.
overdid the threat of it, I think,
Of what, fading?
of fading. But I guess it's such an immaterial. Is that the right word?
Yeah,
It's
it's
such
such
an
an
ethereal problem, right? That only really works in
abstract.
the Tolkien world, an abstract problem, exactly. That perhaps they just needed to really visualize it with the tree going bad, essentially, and
I,
saying,
th-
our power is fading.
I think that's right. I don't know. I didn't need Mithril to be special.
No, no, but you needed the rings to be special, and I guess maybe making the metal that they're made of, in addition to the stones that are from Middle Earth. Because I think it was actually a really important line that Celebrimbor came out with, is that he wanted to make, insofar as Fëanor made things that captured the essence of Valinor, he wanted to make things that captured the essence of Middle Earth. I think that's very
Yeah,
important to the storyline.
true. It was such a throwaway line. It was.
But yeah, it wasn't ideal.
The problem is they almost wrote themselves into a corner with needing to give Elrond a reason to go to Khazad-dûm to introduce the dwarves.
They could have just really liked dwarvish beer.
He could have just really liked dwarvish beer. But then also the idea that Mithril is somehow imbued with the light of the Silmarils. There's no suggestion of that anywhere else. It's just a really swanky ore.
Yeah, my guess with that is that there is this idea that one of the Silmarils is like deep in the earth now, isn't it?
Someone casts it into a pit.
Yeah, so I wonder if they've just gone, maybe we can then say that it's in Mithril.
I guess.
Which, you know, I don't despise it. I think it's not great, but I'm keen to see where they go with it.
It does allow them to forge the 3 first, rather than it's weird because the rings themselves are so poorly defined in the Legendarium. They're just MacGuffins.
Yeah,
they're
it's
imbued
always
with
been a mystery.
They're imbued
right?
with some abstract power to preserve, to guard against change, which the elves see as a bad thing. Obviously, because the elves want to live forever in the glory and light of Valinor. But sort of how the rings do that is so unclear. So the idea that they're this band that contains the light of Valinor, I don't hate. I just wish they were gathering the light some other way. Maybe you could use Mithril to focus the light of Erendil, right? Because that is the light of a Silmaril. So you could have done that perhaps, and then you still need Mithril. I don't know. It was just it made Mithril feel weird.
Yes, for sure. It makes it even weirder now that Frodo walks around Middle Earth with a whole vest made of the stuff.
Yeah.
Like the life force of the elves, almost. Like it's kind of odd. But what the main outstanding question I had was, what was Sauron's ultimate plan here in terms of actually subjugating the elves through the power of the rings? And why has it failed? Because he showed Celebrimbor everything, ultimately. And the only difference is that Galadriel said, let's make 3 instead of 2.
Finrod's dagger.
Yeah, so that's just purity, though.
But I bet you that's actually the answer. So the reason that the 3 are separated from the 1 is that the metals that went into their production are purer. So they
weren't derived from Middle Earth.
Weren't derived from Middle Earth, so their metals are incorruptible because they're not filled with Morgoth's corruption, right? Because Morgoth put forth his corruption into Middle Earth, so everything in Middle Earth is tainted.
That could be an elegant solution, yeah.
So that's why the 3 are different.
Yeah.
Or it's just that when Halbrand returns to Celebrimbor to help him forge the 7 and the 9, he doesn't know about the 3 for some reason. So he doesn't bake in controlling them into the 1. I don't know.
Yeah, how they're going to make the 7 and the 9 now is going to be interesting. But I look forward to seeing it. You know what really bothered me about the rings? I know this really bothered you, but what really bothered me is like you have one of the finest elven smiths ever, and he doesn't in any way, shape, or form refine the gemstones that he puts in them.
That really bugged me as well. The gemstones are
just picked off the ground and like, oh, that'll do.
So uncut.
Like, come on, man. I know elves appreciate the sort of the purity of how things are, but
give us a throwaway line. The gemstones have to have Halbrand say, "Strange that they're not cut," and have Celebrimbor say they have to be uncut because they're to preserve nature, so we can't we can't impose upon them.
But we've also seen so many elven jewels that have beautifully cut gemstones in them, so it's just like it really frustrated me.
It was very strange. And also when you saw, and I'm sure this isn't actually what happened because he'd have to solder it in, but when you saw Celebrimbor drop the ruby into the setting and it doesn't fit,
Yeah, but
It
I
was.
think that's pretty normal. You have to like hammer it shut, right?
I'm sure that's true, but we don't see him doing that. So I'm just picturing sort of Elrond puts his ring on, turns his hand over, and the stone falls out.
And then Middle Earth ended, and then we have a
And
very different canon all of a sudden. That would be the ultimate twist, right? Maybe they're just leaning massively into this whole multiverse thing at the end of
that'd be
five
really
seasons. They're like,
funny.
oh yeah, this was always a different universe, guys.
Sauron wins.
Yeah, Sauron wins, Gandalf becomes evil. I don't know. It's all very odd. Um, so who haven't we talked about then? We love the dwarves, Gil-galad. So you like politicking?
Gil-galad, and Numenor.
You say politicking with Gil-galad. I didn't see him politic at all. He's essentially done nothing all season, other than be a bit of a dick.
So yes, I don't disagree with that at all. We see him politicking a little bit when he sort of manipulates Elrond with Celebrimbor, and we see him a little bit at the dinner. But so I originally didn't like him. I think I still don't like him, but the sort of mental hoops that I could jump through are this idea that Gil-galad is the first High King of the Noldor at peace, and he doesn't know how to do it. Every other High King of the Noldor has been some phenomenal character from the First Age, right? Finwë, Fingolfin, Feanor. Is Feanor ever High King? Doesn't matter. Turgon. Like, these
Yeah,
are...
but I think he's the problem, isn't he? Because now I'm not going to go as far as saying he was ever at peace, but as things were, his kingdom of Gondolin was relatively at peace because they just never interfered.
But it was a kingdom under siege, right? And they still have the great enemy, right? It's just so
Sure,
happens
but
that
in an
Gondolin is
abstract
hidden.
way, the same way that Beleriand could essentially just sort of chill and do nothing.
I don't, I don't think that's quite right. The
In
only
terms of at
reason,
least, all the others were sort of on the offensive.
sure, and Turgon was basically hiding. You're right, and he probably does harm the theory significantly. But I sort of like the idea that Gil-galad just doesn't have a fucking clue what to do. He's terrified that someone's going to work out that he doesn't know what he's doing. And so he comes across as a king still fighting a war. Right? If you look at the way he behaves, it makes sense in the context of a worldwide conflict. You don't get to argue with the High King because
Yeah, but
you
then
need a
why?
strong leader.
But then why is he so adamant that the war is over? Right? He's the one who pushes that storyline.
Because he wants it to be, because he wants his people to be at peace. He just doesn't know how to rule them. Now, they've not done any of this, right? They've just made him look like a twat. But that's how I can sort of justify his behavior in my head.
Yeah, maybe.
Imagine having to follow Fingolfin and Turgon and people like that, and you've got this crown on your head, and you're like, I'm nothing compared to them. Even, full of the arrogance of the Noldor, as I'm sure Gil-galad is. 3 High Kings ago was Finwë. And people remember Finwë. Galadriel probably remembers Finwë.
Ooh, now then, does
I,
she?
I'm not convinced that's actually true, but she definitely remembers Fingolfin.
Because the timings get very, very weird, don't they?
I think she must remember Finwë because of how quickly things happen once Finwë dies, and she crosses the Helcarax. I think
Yeah, she has to already be
so.
around and of age. Yeah, she
She
must
has to
have
be
been. You're
old
right.
enough to remember Finwë, even if
Yeah,
she didn't interact with him. So that
yeah,
might be
yeah.
why he's so hostile to Galadriel as well, because he knows deep down she is better than him, because the light of the trees is still in her eyes and all of this stuff. But he's
Yes.
High King.
Plus, I don't actually know if he would know that, but she would know that her father is High King of the Noldor of Valinor. So, and I think ultimately, if you're Gilgalad and you were to sail into the west, then you are no longer High King.
No, that's true. Which does make it a very noble thing that he does, that he says, look, we got to take our people west to save them. right? There's a sort of hidden nobility in what Gil-galad's doing.
But but that, I must say I didn't quite get that part of the storyline either. Because if we assume, right, the Gil-galad family believes that the war is over, as he says,
Yeah.
then there really is nothing that should keep the elves in Middle Earth. Because it's not like he or Galadriel say, "Oh, we love this place so much."
Aren't they still
Because
all
going
under?
west is a reward. So ultimately, they could have just said, "Well, let's all pack it up and go west
But
and be done with it."
aren't the Noldor still under the Doom?
Are the Noldor still under the Doom?
That's a genuine question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's lifted at the end of the first age,
Like, it can't, because he sends Galadriel west.
but maybe as by virtue of being high, I don't know. I don't know. Galadriel is offered a trip west in the Silmarillion, but I don't remember enough of the Silmarillion because it's too complicated.
I think the Doom. The Doom was. I don't know. Yeah, that's a great question. I'll have
Because
to check that out.
that could be it, right? Going west is a massive risk because they're basically going west to throw themselves on Manway's judgment.
Yeah, worst case scenario, you end up in the halls of Mandos,
True,
which is still west.
which is still west. That's true.
No, but you're right. That there may be, but they didn't communicate that particularly well, I thought.
No, we don't see how Gil-galad is able to give a journey west to Galadriel as a reward, and then also able to say all of our people need to prepare to go west. It's a bit weird.
And equally, that sort of suggestion that it's something that has to be granted. I don't know about that.
I don't know.
I don't think there's anything stopping any elf from just getting on a ship a la Legolas and sailing west.
This is the thing. I don't know when the elves start sailing west.
Yeah.
Is it not until... Well, no, because when Eru reshapes the world, he retains the long road, so the long road must already exist. Which means elves have to be sailing west before the sinking of Númenor. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
know either.
There's a lot about the first episode that doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, but it looked pretty and it looked great. So.
It did look very pretty. What happened to those like elven handmaidens who were on the boat? Did they just all jump off and drown?
I wondered that. My guess is they also just went to Valinor.
My guess is
they disappeared from the deck. But we've seen that. But ships in Middle Earth have got amazing deck space, like underneath the deck space.
Comparatively TARDIS-like, aren't they?
Really is, yeah. Sorry, I just horribly cut you off there, which is not unusual. But
that's fine. I've forgotten what I was saying anyway.
That's usually why I don't bother apologizing.
I want to see more of Gil-galad. I want to see Gil-galad, last High King of the Noldor, sort of in all his splendor, rather than sort of this like quite shitty politician. Basically,
yeah. The problem with setting up as a politician is that he's got no political enemies.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Like Elrond, maybe a little bit, I guess. But
Elrond is his herald at the Last Alliance, so we know they end up allies.
And also, like, he's a sort of father figure to Elrond at that point, so that's a whole different dynamic. And Galadriel's like, you can tell ultimately she doesn't really care that much.
No.
And Celebrimbor just does his own thing. So there's no antagonist to Gil-galad's politicking. Or miscellaneous men, I suppose.
Yeah,
we did see him holding a spear.
We did see Aeglos, which I liked.
For no reason, apparently. He was just casually holding a spear.
I guess it's ceremonial.
Yeah, I did like the way he was holding it, though, and really sort of cuddling it.
Yeah, this is my baby. I love this spear. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him in sort of full regalia, just absolutely going to town on some orcs.
Well, yeah, because we're going to have a war now between the elves and the orcs.
Yeah, and the elves.
Because I think Eregion falls.
Eregion falls
pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Well, We
which
need
is kind of
the
mental because it's ages away from Mordor.
we need the 7 and the 9 to be forged because Celebrimbor has to be tortured by Sauron because he has to give up the location of the 7 and 9, but not the location of the 3. Because he doesn't tell Sauron about the 3.
Yeah.
So watching Halbrand kill the shit out of Celebrimbor is going to be good.
I really also hope there's an outside chance to get Wraith Celebrimbor.
Wraith Celebrimbor, but it's still the same actor.
Exactly, yeah.
That would be really good.
That's great. Yeah, no, so that has to happen. Well, we need to see some Kings of Men.
Yeah, because 9
and
of them need to
more
get
dwarves as
rings.
well, I guess, but at least we've seen one King of the Dwarves.
Yeah,
Yeah, now that Halbrand isn't a King of Men, we have none.
we well,
Because I don't
maybe
think our Pharazôn gets a Ring of Power,
our
does he?
Pharazôn does not get a ring of power.
Yeah.
We'll probably see. We will probably see their rings of men go east and go to Rune and places like that. We need Angmar. We haven't seen
Rune is already
Angmar
so weirdly magical. We do need Angmar, yes.
because the Witch King of Angmar needs a ring.
Yeah, but Angmar is not really a place, I think, before the rings.
No, that's true.
So that could be another sort of Easterling king who just then
Well,
founded the kingdom in the north.
the Witch King's lieutenant needs a ring, and he is an Easterling.
Yes,
So we need to at least see him.
because there's the big fortress up north as well, right? Where I guess a lot of shenanigans will happen.
Is that Fornost?
Yeah.
Was that Fornost though, or was that meant to be further north than I don't know.
Well, the episode 1 they reach Formenos, or at least that region. Yeah,
that's my question. Was that
that's that's the name they gave it in the show.
Did they? I wasn't paying attention.
So you would hope so. By the way, can we just talk about the amazing, completely needless reveal after Mount Doom erupted, where they changed the Southlands to Mordor?
God, it was so bad.
I was like, this is so delightfully 90s. It's amazing.
So much of the show was so good, and so much of it was so bad.
It's like they decided to animate that 30-second stretch, and yeah, we know, guys.
Yeah.
We've known for a while.
I've seen a really good recut of that, which was you zoom out of sort of cinema basically, and you go to that sort of classic Lord of the Rings shot of the map.
Yeah, that would have been better.
And then you just see sort of Mordor burn across the map rather than the Southlands. That I would have liked, but just it looked like a 90s PowerPoint presentation.
That's when they were like, yeah, we've spent 500 million quid already, so this is it.
Lads, that volcano was really expensive. Can anyone's kid whip us up a PowerPoint for this?
Yeah. Yeah, so men that we have seen, or women, I guess.
Numenor,
because
I liked Numenor. I thought Numenor was great. I thought that was really well done. I wanted to spend a little bit more time there, though.
I think we will.
I think we will as well. But
it looked great, right? I mean, amazing.
It looked phenomenal. There was one shot in particular which I messaged you about afterwards, which is the shot of Erendil, well, the statue of Erendil, sort of that looks over the Bay of Numenor with a glowing stone at its head with the star in the background.
Mm.
And I remember watching that and just going, yeah, this is why I'm watching that show. Shots like that. That was phenomenal.
Absolutely. And Uno, like Khazad-dûm and stuff, just looked absolutely incredible.
And the music as well. The music is so good. The musical director has done a phenomenal job.
And I think that, they've also actually done really well in terms of selling all the characters, because I kind of feel bad for Tamriel, especially now that she's definitely got some sort of ocular issues.
Yeah,
Elendil's done, I think, really well to sort of endear himself.
He also has a fantastic hat.
That's fantastic. He's really obsessed with those fucking Numenorian hats. They're not that good.
No, specifically Elendil's. Elendil's got like a really cool, like winged helmet.
Okay, Because it looks a bit like tinfoil. You're just so used to having it
Yeah,
on.
that's exactly what it is.
No, but I think his struggles as a father and as a commander, I think that's really
Yeah.
engaging. Isildur's been great. His sister's, well, I was going to say she's great. I don't really know how she
She's
fits
not
in yet, but
done much.
no, other than killed the king.
Yeah, she
And
killed the king.
yeah, and
Bit
then an
low.
Arion we haven't even met yet. And even our Farazon, I think, has been really engaging because at times it's like, he might have a point, guys.
Yeah, yeah. And his son as well.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some shenanigans there, right? Some Elendil versus our Farazon familial shenanigans.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Calling it now, our Farazon's son kills Elendil's daughter.
Yes, I completely agree. During Farazon's coup.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think that's a really good shout.
Or even worse, she somehow sides with our Farazon, and yeah, there's a lot
and then
worse
drowns.
outcome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's also possible. I think the son kills her because she's
Yeah, it
going to go
seems.
and warn Elendil, and for some reason
Yeah.
Elendil's important.
Yeah. I like that. That's good. That's very good. Yeah, because Miriel didn't really see that coming. Her being blind. I don't remember if that's like a thing in the books.
I don't
I
remember,
doubt
but
it because she barely features. But
she simply exists for Farazon to marry and take over.
yeah, but I guess because they portrayed her as a very strong character, and maybe this is a way of potentially meaning that she has to rely more on our Farazon for things.
Yes.
I don't know.
And it then I guess becomes easier for like Farazon to bring, if we assume that it's Farazon who goes back to Middle Earth, or Elendil or someone, or not her, it becomes easier to bring Sauron back to Numenor because she literally can't see him.
Oh yeah, I hadn't even thought of that.
I thought I genuinely just had that thought, but yeah, I think it works.
That would be amazing if he's just
always in the
his
throne,
own
but he
self,
never
yeah.
says anything.
He just constantly when he's with her, he just looks like how he portrayed himself to Galadriel in that reflection. Just him in his like evil armor.
That reflection, that I want to come back to that sort of mind fuckery that Halbrand was doing to Galadriel. That was really good.
Yes.
I thought that was really well done.
And you know what? Excellently acted by Finrod, I thought, because from the beginning I was like, "There's something a little off about him here."
Yeah, because I was a big fan of Finrod at the start, and then I remember not liking him in that scene.
Yeah, it's because it wasn't really Finrod. That's why.
That was very, very well done.
Really incredible acting from my obvious expertise.
That was very, very well done. And then going back to the raft.
Yeah.
And yeah, just starting to, and obviously Sauron is the deceiver and all of that, so he's screwing around with Galadriel, but I bought it.
And you know what? I think it's a continuation of the actual conversation they had. I don't think it's him doing anything. I think he just knocked her out and left, essentially. And then she, in her own mind, was having these battles with herself.
You think?
I don't think he physically did anything.
He did it. That's a good idea.
Because that's ultimately way scarier, right? That he's essentially got like mind magic powers. I think he just got under her skin to such an extent that when she fell into the river, she had this big old problem.
She was essentially having a fight with her own subconscious.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Because it's the same fight that Galadriel is still having in the Third Age when Frodo offers her the ring.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting. I like that a lot. And then eventually she passes the test, she wins the fight, but not until the Third Age.
Yeah, and hopefully I think what they're sort of setting up is that she won't do it alone, right? She'll have the likes of Elrond, doing it with her.
What, pulling her back from the edge?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Being a sort of guiding light, as, seems to be his family tradition.
Well, yeah, I like the way they've sort of set up their relationship as completely sort of older sister, younger brother type thing. I think that
Yeah, it's
works really well.
insofar they dropped the bombshell about Celeborn
Yeah,
actually being her husband, but
that's what that was going to be my
being
last thing.
gone.
Where is Celeborn
Where
in
is
all of
Celeborn? I
this?
think he's in the Greenwood, but then we've already left the Greenwood now, so I don't know.
That
Yeah, I don't know.
that
But it
could
also raises the
be
question: is Celebrian already
with
alive?
she. I sort of think she has to be, because otherwise, at some point, we're going to need like a pregnant Galadriel. I just don't think that's going to work with the character that they've built. Although
Yeah,
we've got
but then
four
Elrond would already presumably be married,
know her and be married to her.
or maybe we get to see a wedding. You know that she is actually alive with Celeborn somewhere. Who knows?
So
You
I'm
think she would
I'm
mention it, but
wondering if we're going to see if that's how you start to tie the stories together. So Nori and the stranger meet Celeborn,
yeah, exactly, and maybe his daughter. Yeah,
and maybe Celebrian. But I feel like if Galadriel had a daughter, we would know it because it would have been relevant at some point. Because either she thinks that she's dead, or she's the reason Galadriel keeps fighting.
and also simply when she was, with Theo, it's probably the sort of thing you would mention. No?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
going to talk about your husband, you might
I
as well sort of
remember
have
when my daughter was your age.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Theo, yeah. So Theo, we had a theory on Theo, didn't we? That he might be the Witch King ultimately.
I like the Theo is the Witch King theory. I like your suggestion that he's our corruption barometer as well,
Yeah,
because he seems very willing to go dark the moment things aren't going well.
very much so. Yeah. The problem is I have no idea where that storyline, so the Theo Bronwyn Arondir storyline is going to go because they're now in Mordor,
Well, they're going
I
to
guess.
Pelargir,
They were heading to Pelargir, weren't they? Yeah, that's true.
so they're just going to become Gondorian.
Yeah, so because I guess is where Elendil will land ultimately. I still also, I mean, I know I'm saying everyone's a blue wizard at this point, but I still have outside odds on her being a blue wizard somehow.
Absolutely not. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
having that. I'm not having her as a blue wizard. I don't mind a female blue wizard, but not.
She's wearing blue, yeah, sexist.
Oh, give a shit. Give a shit that she's wearing blue. Idiot.
Wow, you've not had that in a show for a while. Goodness. I almost feel offended if I in any
Good.
way cared about your opinion.
No, you've said that before, and I hate that theory. It's the worst theory you've got about the
I
show.
don't know. I just feel they're the furthest east. So if we're going to see a connecting of the storylines, I can only imagine the Istar and Nori meeting them. Although if they're going to Pelargir, that is quite a long way
But
south.
but I don't know where the Eastar and Nori are. I don't know where they're starting.
Yeah, the
Oh,
Grove. At one point, they showed a map, right? I want to say the Grove was like
it's
not too
in
far from where the dead marshes are
well, it's in the
now.
Southlands because there was bits of Mount Doom in the Grove.
Yes,
So
true. But I thought
it's
they were on the northern side of it.
maybe they might be on the other side of the northern mountains of Mordor. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. Ugh.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, hopefully lots more Numenor. You know what? Hopefully lots more of the same. I loved it.
Yeah,
You have to just kind of take, as I think you put it quite well, you have to take your sort of meta Tolkien hat off a little bit
yeah. I
and
think
just enjoy it.
take your I've read the Silmarillion too many times hat off. It's really good.
And all the
I think.
people online commenting about, oh, the Irish accents all over the place. It's like, well, they're not in fucking Ireland, are they?
Yeah,
Christ.
that's not an Irish accent. That's a Harfoot accent.
Exactly. Um, yeah, it's shit like that. Like, just go away with your shit criticisms and enjoy it for what it is.
There are some valid criticisms, right? There's a lot of stuff that happens, particularly at the early in the early episodes. Sorry, that happens because it's necessary for the plot, and that's sort of it. But
Yeah, of course.
but
I'm not going to sit here and say it's the perfect show.
but that's also just Tolkien, right? I sent you um, something recently about how the plot of the whole of the Lord of the Rings is a contrivance. And that's fine because it's fiction, and if everyone behaved in the way that we'd expect people to behave, we wouldn't have a story.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, if they ever do another one of those slow-mo horse riding shots, I may stop watching out of protest. But, I can forgive that, just about.
Yeah.
That was absolutely awful, though. Let's just be clear about that.
I didn't hate it as much as everyone else seemed to, because I sort of understood why they were doing it, but it was just bad and unnecessary.
I was like, this is not where you spend your budget. You could have done this beautiful map transition of the Southlands into Mordor instead of this slow-mo shot using this camera that would have cost an absolute fortune.
Of Galadriel riding a horse across a beach.
Which he then does many times afterwards.
Yeah.
Anyway. Other than that, it's a great show.
Yes, it's a very good show.
So I'm assuming in about a year's time, about 10 months' time, we'll
I suspect so.
kick off, yeah.
I suspect that's when we're getting the next episode, or the next series.
Yeah. Until then, we have to wait. So
There's
you've caught up with all the MCU films. Are you caught up with all the MCU TV shows?
No, I need to watch She-Hulk and Werewolf at Night.
Yeah,
you need to watch House of the Dragon, which is really good. I think it's better than Rings of Power.
Oh,
it's very different. It's very, very different. But I think it's better.
Well, yes, I will watch it at some point. I'm going to get a Now TV subscription over Christmas and just binge watch it on the free trial.
I cracked. So I got the subscription too early. But I'm afraid I think I need to wrap up there because I think I can hear a baby. So I'm afraid that's where we're going to need to leave it.
That's all right. Have you got time for the outro? Or are you going
yeah. I can do the outro.
Well, on that note, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Expertise is Overrated. No doubt we've said some things that were either objectively wrong or downright offensive. As ever, feel free to let us know, rate the podcast and leave us a comment, or drop us an email at expertiseisoverrated@gmail.com, tweet us at zeroexpertise, check out our website expertiseisoverrated.podbean.com, or come join us on our Discord server.
If you're lucky, we might just argue with you in one of our upcoming episodes. And if you're really lucky, we might call you an idiot. Now, since next episode will be our 40th, which is terrifying, we're going to expand on what we were going to talk about this time and look at bad guy power creep in superhero films. Is it there? And is it a problem? Join us then for more nonsense.